Mic check, mic check. All right. Just like that, we are live. Thank you so much for tuning in, whether you're watching it live, watching it back. I do appreciate you. Just getting it settled in here, getting the back of the flow of the stream. And we're vibing. We're vibing. What a time to be alive. So much going on. It's such a busy time of year for everybody across the board. I feel like whether or not you celebrate Christmas or the holidays in a major way, whatever the case, like a lot of people's jobs are busy and whatnot. Maybe it's just me, but so much to talk about, so much going on in the world of finance. We got drones out here. It's crazy. I swear I thought I saw some the other day, but it's hard to know at this point, right? It's hard because it's dark, but just the whole like way it's being described is so strange. It's like, it's not bad, but we don't know what it is. Don't worry. Like it's just the 2020s have been crazy so far, and the craziest part is that we're only halfway through, right? Like we have so much more to go. Like literally, we're 50% of the way through the decade now. So we'll see what happens, right? We will see what happens. But I'm just gonna be documenting the journey for you guys as we go through here. So a lot of different things I want to talk about with like Bitcoin and GameStop today. Just miscellaneous ideas I've had, and the more and more I think about it, that's what a live stream's for. Just miscellaneous ideas and sharing, talking, bouncing ideas off you guys in the chat and whatever else I just seem to find here. So let me just make sure everything's settled in. Get the chat up on the side laptop. Just makes it easier. So definitely love to do that. But here we go. Just getting settled in here. And this is a classic chart, and definitely I found the spot I'm going to show you guys in a second with some interesting stuff. But let's hit the chat. Short Fridays, Cohen announced about Bitcoin buy already, dude. Why not? Short Fridays, thank you for being here. I have mixed feelings on that, right? Like I personally wouldn't be against it, but I definitely see why some GameStop shareholders would be, considering they're investing in GameStop for GameStop, not for Bitcoin. But with that being the case, again, I wouldn't be like personally opposed to it. It's more so if I want Bitcoin, I'll buy Bitcoin, and I am playing around a little bit with MicroStrategy, right? Like I have a very small position, and then in regard to GameStop, I'm investing it because I believe they can turn things around. It's taken maybe a little bit longer than some of us may have hoped. I think everyone's in their own boat in terms of what they think will happen in terms of the speed of the turnaround. I have some thoughts on PSA I'll be getting to later, but it definitely is an interesting time in the markets. I mean, we have S&P's been doing really well this year. GameStop's done well. Bitcoin's done well. Pretty much everything has done well, right? And then part of me feels like, and we got the MicroStrategy tracker here, they just endlessly buy Bitcoin. At this point, they own 2.09% of all Bitcoin outstanding. But when I see all of this happening, right, it makes me start to be a little bit cautious because it's one of those, like, it almost feels like everything is too good to be true right now. It's like, oh yeah, Bitcoin's going to keep going up. All this policies being put in place. These institutions, these countries are buying it, right? Which I'm still absolutely bullish on Bitcoin, to be perfectly clear. And then in regards to GameStop, it's like, oh yeah, like someone's buying $125 call options. People are buying out of the money call options. Somebody knows something. It's going to go up a lot, right? And it's just one of those, like, you want to be like cautiously optimistic in this type of situation, in my opinion, because generally you want to be greedy when others are fearful, right? And fearful when others are greedy. Not to say there's reason to be fearful at this moment, but you just kind of want to keep that in mind and just keep yourself grounded and just stay self-aware. I think that's really important, and not always the easiest thing to do. Like it's easier said than done for sure. So, but yeah, really trying to get back into just some consistent streams, maybe a little bit earlier on. I like the night streams, but when I work from home, which I do a couple days a week, I can just hop right out of work, hop right into the streams. It's kind of what I did today, but as usual, I kind of misinterpreted the amount of time it would take to get everything going, and just work this time of year is crazy. Like it just keeps coming and coming and coming. I always think of that Seinfeld episode with Newman, and it's like in the mail, it keeps coming and coming, and then the next day there's more, and it piles up, piles up. And that's kind of what my job feels like at this time of year in terms of what I do in processing like outgoing wires and whatnot. But regardless, let's talk about GameStop here. So I have some notes on the Q3 earnings. I want to share them with you guys. Last year I was kind of writing them out throughout and then finished them up after, but we'll go through them here. So the tone of the business priorities, right, which we have right here, if you read through them: establish omnichannel retail excellence, achieve profitability, and leverage brand equity to support growth. So achieve profitability, to me, the tone of it says that, like, hey, this is the number one thing. During fiscal 2023, we continue to optimize our cost structure to align with our current and anticipated future needs. We will continue to focus on cost containment, including closing underperforming stores, as we look to operate with increased efficiency. So to me, that reads as, hey, we're going to do whatever it takes. We'll slim down. We'll get rid of whatever we need to ensure that we're turning a net profit. And I think that's especially important when you look at the fact that they're not quite operationally profitable yet. So until they are, I think they just have to keep doing the little things to really get them to where they want to be. And you can see that here on this chart, which I have a bigger version over here. So you can see definitely margins are absolutely improving right now, right? So you have gross margins in yellow, operating in blue, and then net in purple. So you can see we're getting a net margin these past 2 quarters, whereas this same time last year, they weren't quite net profitable yet. Although I will say, a large part of that is net income, and you could see that reflected in the operating margin. But at the end of the day, they did turn a profit. And when you look at the stock chart, right, when we go to, where do we have trading view? I thought I had it open. Trading view. So when you look at GameStop, right, and you look at where they raised capital, so they did 3 rounds of share offerings, right? The first one took place, where's this, May 24th, and then we have the next one June 7th, and then the following one was September 23rd. So when we go back to our chart here, you look back at this period is when they raised capital in here, right? And then they raised capital in here on this run up, both times like pretty much near the top. And some would say, oh, it killed the gamma ramp or whatever the case, right? And then another time back in September here, and that's where you had this drop off, and they completed it right around here, and that's where you got this little jump on the news that it's been completed. But if I told you back here when we were as low as $10 a share that, hey, GameStop's going to raise $3.2 billion in capital through the remainder of this year, and the stock price is going to be 3x what it is right now, right? It's going to go from $10 to $30. You'll be up 200% from that point if you were just buying shares at that point for the first time, that is. You would be probably ecstatic. So it's pretty incredible what they've been able to do. And then also just looking at some basic numbers, right? You look at their current ratio, it's really strong. And that's just current assets to current liabilities. And that's really because they have a very limited amount of debt. And they're just really putting themselves in a spot where they have a very, very strong balance sheet. And that's given them the ability to be patient in making the moves that they want to make. And it's starting really small, with things that we've talked about before here, and I'm sure you guys absolutely know about if you follow GameStop at all. From Mod Retro to the Raptor 8 controller, CandyCon, and then now more lately, the big talk is PSA. See, as you can see here, I got quite a few notes on it, a lot of different things. This was a great interview, by the way, if you guys haven't seen it. Nat Turner, he basically does an interview with this guy, Neo Cars and Collectors, who's avid car collector and just into comics and a lot of stuff. I was kind of checking out some of his content, getting to know him a little bit after this one, and just saw another video he also made on GameStop that was pretty informative, just giving some like general knowledge on it. And again, it's good because it's from like a collector's viewpoint. And in this interview too, you learn a lot about Nat and how he's thinking about things. And also, I just posted this clip on my Twitter today, X, whatever you want to call it these days. But pretty much this clip right here highlights most of, if you want to check it out, most of what the partnership with GameStop is thus far, and how GameStop basically went to them to say, hey, I think we have an opportunity here. And then ultimately, after only a few weeks, he winds up joining the board of directors, right? And that's where we got this little bit of information, which I'm going to try and get into a little bit more later. I found a post, does some pretty good napkin math, where it basically says, if their total transaction volume thus far is 1.53 million, you get a rough idea of what they've done so far, then get it down to like a month and a half, 2-month basis, multiply it out for a year, and maybe you get a rough idea of what it might look like for GameStop on a yearly basis. But obviously, anything they're doing, right, in terms of new initiatives, they want it to snowball. So regardless of what it does initially, in any napkin math based off initial sales or initial processing of authenticating cards, you want them to have that snowball effect. And if it's beneficial to them, right? If it's beneficial to PSA, it's beneficial to them. That's the kind of relationship that they want to have. But that's just how I see it right now. And getting back to the current ratio, you can see it here, 6.23. And then another example of a stock that just recently became profitable, not that recently anymore, and just has a strong balance sheet. You can look at Palantir. They also have a very strong current ratio. Not to say that's all you need for the stock to do well, right? It's not that plain and simple, but just another example, right? It's kind of funny actually. Now that I'm looking at it, look at the amount of cash on their balance sheet, and very similar to GameStop, very limited amount of debt. So just some food for thought there. And they have a decent amount of insider ownership, right? Kind of similar to GameStop. So while these are definitely not the same stocks, definitely some similarities you could draw between them. And just looking at some basic data. Obviously nothing too in depth here, but 8.5%. That's a rough number, after the dilutions. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens. And now BlackRock's releasing Bitcoin videos. So much I'm just finding as I'm setting things up and just getting out of work. Oh, this happened today, that happened today, right? And then literally as I'm working, right, this is how I write notes, guys. I'll just like scribble things down here. Just miscellaneous things that I want to circle back to. So, man, crazy busy at work as well. Gotta watch our health in the meanwhile. I know what you mean, Ryan. I know what you mean. I'm trying to be, namaste. Stay calm, right? Focusing on GME work when GME hits 30 plus is not an easy task. I know exactly what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. And then I want to see, what are people saying? What's going on? Is there any potential indicator, right? Such as like the $125 call options that were supposedly purchased yesterday. Not supposedly. Why I say supposedly is that when you have a huge block trade like that, there's always a buyer and a seller. So there's two sides of the transaction, right? And it's hard to know if it's truly like positive volume or negative volume. But from what I understand, like increase the open interest. And if you guys have any insight on it, feel free to drop it in the chat. But if it increased open interest, then it's generally like a bullish side trade. Hi, because I can. Hope you're doing well. Made 3 different DD on Discord. You should look into it. It's all Apollo hedge fund. Because I can, I'll have to check it out. I still gotta go. I gotta get back on Discord. See, I'm gonna scribble that note down now. Been meaning to do that. It's one of the things just haven't really looked at in a long time. But I got you. I'm gonna check it out. Wait, isn't Nat Turner? Not sure what you mean, short Fridays. I'm not too sure. Adam A told his investors they would raise billions and stock would rise. Oh, wait, you need great operators for that to work. Patrick, thank you for being here. Exactly. That's the thing, right? When you look at what AMC's done and you look at what their stock performance is after they raise capital, not good. GameStop, in my opinion, strategically waits to raise capital, right? Even though this whole time here they're saying they got to do something, all of a sudden they raise $3.2 billion pretty much in the second half of this year. And the stock price is doing better and the balance sheet's stronger, margins have improved. So doing all the little things right has really got them to this point now. And it's been like a long grind, and I can't speak for everyone, but I've been here a long time and following the stock. So it's nice to finally see some positive energy around it, right? I think there's been a lot of people that have believed in it for a long time, such as myself. And, it's for various reasons. And the story just has so many layers and goes so deep. But just saying that right now, it just feels like the OG like due diligence like foretold this prophecy, right? Like that's just what they say, that it was going to be a situation where it's terrible company, it's not going anywhere, and then all of a sudden like, oh, actually there's something going on here, right? And then suddenly just the public narrative will shift. And it does kind of start to feel like that when you have an account interviewing Nat Turner, right? Again, this individual, I keep forgetting his name, Neo Cards and Comics. And he was speaking positively on it. And generally speaking, you talk to people outside of those closely following GameStop, and they're like, oh, GameStop's so bad. Oh, my God. And he's saying, wow, yeah, I really could see how they've evolved and how things are going to work, right? So, like, to me, that's a positive development. And then you see stuff like this. You see the $125 call options. Where is it? The Zacks. All of a sudden, Zacks is like, oh, yeah, it's a new strong buy stock out of nowhere after like trashing on it for so long. All of a sudden, it's a Zacks rank #1 strong buy, right? Take that as you will, but just interesting to see all of a sudden, like, there's really not as much negative media presence around GameStop like there once was for years and years on end, right? Q3 earnings beat despite sales decline of 20% year over year. So still a little bit of negative sentiment to that, but to me, right, like that same article maybe 1 year ago would say something along the lines of GameStop sees double-digit sales decline, ekes out a small profit, right? That seems like the type of headline we would have saw a year ago, whereas now we see more headlines like this, right, where it's still, the decline of 20% is included, but that's a valid thing to include when you're just making a headline, right? So it kind of makes sense. So it just kind of feels like these small sentiment changes are taking place. I mean, let me know what you guys think. Maybe that's just me, but even now, right, I'm very cautiously optimistic with the stock because so many times, right, it's been, oh, it's here. This is the time, right? Oh, it's going crazy. It's going crazy. It's going so much higher. And you just don't know. Although, when you look right here, I honestly can say, like, it does feel like pre 2021, right? So, like, you kind of see this cycle that started in 2020 in the summer, like heading into January. And one could only wonder, is that kind of something similar that's going on here? And, that rabbit hole goes really, really deep. To me, I just focus on the fundamentals of the company. As long as they're doing well, whatever's underneath that's been suppressed, whether it be short interest, suspicious swap trades, whatever the case, right? Or whatever you believe, however you look at it, anything underlying will bubble to the surface if the stock continues to succeed, and that's done by management driving them forwards in getting them to do the right things. So all we could do is enjoy the journey. I mean, that's not all you could do. You could trade options, you could sell options, you could just buy the stock, you could watch from the sidelines. I think I got a good mix of viewers. Definitely got some of the GameStop haters in here, but listen, that's all right. We got the GameStop neutrals as well, and that's all right too. So I come one, come all. See, Adam A, Jimmy chart looking good. Couldn't agree more. Good. Can't even talk today, guys. Couldn't agree more. Movie here. Couldn't agree more. Gotta get some coffee. But looking at S&P too, it's had a really good year. So we'll have to see going into next year. What does that kind of look like? I'm not too sure. But really, like, I want to share some more thoughts on PSA, right? So Nat Turner and his investment group took over PSA's parent company, Collectors, in late 2021. They had massive volume, and in the interview, he basically explains that they decided, like, we have to completely stop accepting new cards for a period of time, get everything up to par, on track, in line, and then we'll start taking cards in again to authenticate, right? And this is back in 2021. And allegedly, word got around to some businesses, right, that send in massive amounts of cards to be graded, or individuals who send in like massive amounts of cards. So they sent in a ton of stuff really quick while they were doing that with that problem, because it basically leaked out that they were going to shut things down. So he had to overcome those operational challenges, kind of similar to GameStop when Ryan Cohen became chairman of the board and just majority shareholder. Kind of some of the same struggles, it seemed to me, right? And listening to him talk about it, seemed to be a little bit of correlation there. And then, last stream I was theorizing, right? Maybe GameStop's ultimate play is to buy out collectors, right? Because it is a $4.3 billion valuation, but that's as of March 30th, 2022. That's almost 2 years ago at this point. And the company, as it says here, year over year was up 100% in terms of its EBITDA. So obviously they're doing well, and I'm sure they've grown more since then. So GameStop would, like, it's probably valued at much more now. Not to mention, GameStop would have to theoretically pay a premium if they were to acquire it, right? And the more I thought about it, I'm like, why would collectors want to do that, right? To me, the path forward, like when I think about it after a little bit more time and just kind of digesting the earnings and just overviewing everything, right? I feel like it's more so that they want to just build the partnership further, right? And some of the ways that they could potentially do that is through this thing right here. Wada Games is the name of it. And essentially, they grade games. They're also in the business of grading comics. So, what if they really just start to facilitate grading all sorts of collectibles, right? Even beyond cards, but also in doing this from the GameStop end, you're looking at a situation where you're getting more people into the stores that maybe haven't been there in a long time, right? And also, you got to think about kids trying to get their cards graded. Maybe they go to their parents. The parents have a million things on their plate. They're not like gonna, oh yeah, let me research how to send stuff into PSA. The kid's like, but little Johnny said, hey, he got his graded at GameStop. Why don't we just go to GameStop? And then they go to GameStop. Oh, while we're here, can we get a new pack? Can we pick up a new pack of cards? Please, mom, please. Right? That sort of thing starts to happen. So just getting traffic back in the stores, I think, is really big. And I think as we're seeing this partnership start to develop more, right? If they do more with it, right? Or just as it stands, I think GameStop will start to sell more and more cards, and you'll see less and less games on the shelves and more cards, right? That's a new theory I'm kind of building with here. But really, long term, I see it going really, really well. That's what I'm starting to think over time, right? I'm just looking at my notes here, see if I miss anything else. So yeah, more collectibles and just that would essentially be further expanding the partnership, right? So I do wonder if that's something we start to see. And then if it's maybe, right? I was talking to someone today and it's like, hey, maybe it's a situation where they make X amount of dollars per transaction or per card sent in for grading. And then once they get over 10,000 transactions in a month, everyone after that, they get an even greater amount of commission essentially, right? Maybe it's a structure like that. Maybe it's just a flat structure. That would be hard to know. I don't think we'll ever find out that information. It's probably just going to stay between collectors and GameStop. So we'll have to see if any info does come out because it would be interesting to see and kind of math out the logistics and how they might play out, right? And then that kind of leads me to my next point where someone did some napkin math here, right? The PSA submission tools. So they basically did some napkin math based off this $1.53 million number that we got here in the announcement of Nat Turner becoming part of the board. We'll have to chat real quick. I don't know about you guys, but I love Christmas. Christmas is my favorite time of year. The Grinch, like I said, even though it's busy, but just love the vibes. I love the vibes and just have good memories as a kid and stuff. So I feel like it's just the best time of year. I don't know about you guys, but that's just me. Feeling pretty content here at 31. I'll start to pay attention to the Battle of 180, $45 post split. Yeah, Ryan. Hey, I know exactly what you mean, man. I know exactly what you mean. It's like, okay, I'm looking at it today, even I'm like, unless we were up like 20%, is it really that big of a move relative to what I've seen over these past few years, right? Is it really that much? What's an exit strategy? Morrow gets it. Hey, not financial advice, but this guy gets it. Turner definitely conveyed having been proven wrong on level of biz they're seeing from GameStop. Yeah, Patrick, you're absolutely right. Because in the interview, he literally says, like, I was surprised when GameStop came to me and didn't expect them to want to do a partnership with us. And boy, was I wrong. And wow, how fast they implemented it, right? Like, he spoke very highly of them. Obviously, you could say there's a little bit of bias in that now that he's on the board of directors. And, we don't know yet, right? But his Form 3 showed, I don't know if I have it here, but his Form 3, right? The initial filing you make once you become an insider, I do have it, that he does not own any shares, right? But when you look at this, he will essentially be provided shares, right? I think it says it here, term expiring, will not receive any compensation for serving as a director. So he won't be paid any cash, right? But I believe it does say somewhere here that he'll be compensated in shares if they meet certain benchmarks. Yes, he has 10% equity interest in PSA and has been awarded additional unvested equity compensation awards at collectors, which are subject to forfeitures if certain performance conditions are not satisfied. Since the beginning of the collaboration, the approximate dollar value of the transactions between the company and PSA pursuant to the collaboration agreement was $1.53 million. So what I'm actually reading here, so let me just correct this real quick. It's not that he's going to get compensation of shares in GameStop, but if PSA meets certain milestones, he gets additional equity in them. Therefore, if GameStop does this partnership well, it's in his best interest because that means PSA will be doing well. Hence, he could earn his additional equity compensation awards. So, see what comes of that. So we're thinking it, and if PFA is the SDC for a grading card, if you have an online trading at scale, low cost, high quality service for sending in and out your collection, the local on the foot collector store show is now essentially virtualized. And today's young crowd can just do it online. I agree with Tetron Theory. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you. Yeah, just getting caught up. Sorry. Sometimes people throw things in the chat and then it's like about something I already just said. And then I'm like, wait, is it about what I'm saying now? Is it about what I was just talking about? But I think we're roughly on the same page here. So Matthew, thank you for being a great points. I'm not much of a gamer anymore and am a card collector. Almost nowhere to buy cards where I live in Virginia. I'd love to see more cards on the shelves. Yeah, Matthew, I think it's definitely something they could lean into more, And also, if people are coming in the door to get their cars graded, and I have a few that I've literally been meaning to get graded. I keep saying it, but especially now that it's the holidays, all the GameStops near me are in malls. I'm doing most of my Christmas shopping online, so I haven't got there yet, but I'm eventually going to do it, right? I just have these few. I got Mr. Unlimited that's going to get graded. Russell Wilson, a few Jesper Bratt hockey cards here. One of them's like 18 and 99, but for me, I'm a new collector, right? And I've been buying some cards now, and I even had a few before GameStop got into it. Like I had this Aaron Judge one for a few years now that I got for literally only $30. I'll show you guys on a bigger screen here. For literally only $30, right? which was such a steal when you look it up now. Last I looked, it was up like 5x from the $30 I paid. So I'd do this when I get my cards just so I can keep track of them. And by the way, if you are going to submit cards to get graded, you do need like a certain type of thing. It's stuck in the drawer here. I'm not going to bother trying to yank it out, but you basically need to put them in a certain type of thing before GameStop will send them in. And it's basically to protect them from being bent or damaged in transit, right? But I've picked up these football cards since then, right? Players I like that I think will be successful over the next several years. We got Jamar Chase, Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud, Justin Jefferson. Some would call them young superstars, young studs. I think they've all been amazing, especially Jamar Chase this year. He's been absolutely going off. But with that being said, I'm a new collector, right? So I've kind of dabbled in it, but now that GameStop's involved in it and just simplifying the process, it's something I'm going to get involved in more. And I would say, the same in that I don't really game as much these days. Definitely when I was younger, the days of playing Minecraft, League of Legends, I always think back to the Wii. That always has the best memories for me. Mario Party. I think one of these days I got to do like a Mario Party or like Mario Super Slugger stream or something to that effect. I think that would be super dope, super iconic, right? So while I think the legacy business can remain and could still be a part of things, it can't be the main show anymore, right? Like that's something I'm kind of realizing over time. And I feel like I've kind of known that, right? But it's more so really setting in with the PSA partnership taking place that, okay, they are leaning into other things, but they don't want to lean too far and fall over, right? And to me, the business version of falling over in that hypothetical is you lose a lot of capital on making a misstep in rushing to do something, right? So a lot of people are saying, oh, GameStop's not doing anything. They got to do something. The revenue keeps falling, right? That is correct, right? Because you look at their revenue here, year over year, it does continue to fall. But what do you notice? Their net income keeps increasing year over year. And then when you think about going from 2024 to 2025, what do we have coming up? We have Fed rate cuts. We're supposed to get one tomorrow. It's very, very likely, right? When you look at the CME Fed Watch tool. Where are we? Here. CME Fed Watch tool, 95.4% of a chance that they're going to cut rates. Frankly, I'd be very, very surprised if they didn't. And I think the market is feeling the same way in terms of this prediction tool. And then when you look at the next meeting, it's priced in that they'll cut rates again, right? Going from, or I'm sorry, actually it's priced in that they would remain the same. That's very interesting. And then looking beyond that, it's priced in that they'll be cut down the line. So I could see that we get one cut here, no cut on this one, cut the following one, right? Maybe then a couple more cuts down the line. I don't know for sure, but what I do know is the general sentiment is that rates will be cut, right? And in that happening, that will hurt GameStop's net income because you have to look at the fact that they had a pretty significant amount of interest income in the quarter, especially after raising all that cash, right? And I think I had a note on it over here. So the total interest income, right, is 54 million, although I believe that was for the full year. Or sorry, through 3 quarters thus far. So let's see actually real quick. Go to the earnings release. So for the 39 weeks ended, this is percentages, 39, this 13 weeks ended, okay. Where are we? Interest income. I know I just passed it. Interest income, boom. So they've actually made 108.6 million through 39 weeks. So I actually stand corrected. It was 54.2 million for this past quarter. So that will see a slight decline. Let's update it, make it a little bit more accurate here. So that will see a slight decline as interest falls and kind of interest rates falls and kind of incentivizes GameStop to use that cash, maybe a little bit more urgency. But based on what we've seen over the last several years and the fact that they were holding $1 billion prior to interest rates being raised, right? Or as interest rates start to rise in the 2022 era or period of time, whatever you want to call it, they were very patient with it, right? So while I don't think they'll rush to jump to spend the cash, I do think they're a little bit more incentivized to spend it in driving things forward, right? And how exactly that is, I don't know. What I do think is that eventually it's going to be beyond PSA, maybe some big marketing campaign, right? But even if they do some big marketing campaign, I don't think they're going to sacrifice profitability for that. But I do wonder if they acquire some really small collector's company, right? In some way, right? Because there's also smaller companies that grade cards. Could that be a possibility, right? I don't know. I'm still kind of going down that road, but it's such a great story, right? And maybe I think that sounds corny to people that out on the outside looking in, but what a great story GameStop has. That's just been evolving. There's such a large amount of people behind it that believe in it and want to shop the company and are invested in the stock and in the story, right? And to be clear, there's no we, there's no community, right? It's all individuals and everybody's doing their own thing, right? More recently, I've been selling put options on GameStop a little bit. I don't buy calls, right? To me, that's too stressful. I'm not willing to go down that road. I've seen too many ups and downs, but I'll sell puts and then I just hold shares, right? But some other people, they're actively trading it. Some people are having a high risk tolerance and playing calls, right? Some people are just watching on the sidelines. Some people are so invested in it and they don't even realize that they're hating on it so much, right? In the sense they're not physically investing in it. Maybe they're even shorting it, right? They're on the other side of the trade, but they're investing so much of their time in it, right? Think about the GME meltdowners. Like, do they really still post? I don't know. I don't even surround myself with that nonsense, right? Or just any negative energy in general. I'm just like, whew, whew, get it away from me, right? Any negative anything, I just want it out, right? And that's not to say I'm closing the doors like, oh, I'm never going to look at any possible bear cases for GameStop, right? Those I will look at, analyze, and make my own determination, right? But what I'm saying is, how could you talk so, like, if you hate something so much, why would you put so much time into talking about it and posting about it on the internet? Like, it's just comical. You could put that time into anything else that you're interested in talking about. And like it just boggles my mind, right? Like, why would you want to dedicate so much time, right? If you feel very strongly want to make a logical bull case, I'm sorry, bear case, because you're a GME melter downer, fine. But when you're like, these people, I can't believe it. Look at this guy. Oh my God, they're still talking about GameStop. How is this thing not bankrupt yet? Oh, they raised capital. Now they'll just survive on interest income forever, right? And it's like, I just don't know why that creates so much like hostility for people, right? But in a way, that just makes it like that much more interesting, right? That there's people, there's the Bulls and there's the Bears, and I think they both talk about GameStop just as much. And overall, that's good for GameStop, right? I always think of that scene from Wolf of Wall Street. He's like, "Are you saying this? You saying this, honey? They're calling me the Wolf of Wall Street." What's wrong? There's no such thing as bad publicity, honey, right? Like it says something like that, right? So the end of the day, there's people talking about it. And in terms of PSA bringing people in the stores, to me, that's huge because it brings back people that maybe haven't shopped there in a long time. And to me, that's very bullish and just reestablish trust with the brand because there's definitely a lot of people who had bad experiences with GameStop in 2017, 18, 19, 20, even 2020, right? And they're like, I'm never shopping there again. Oh my God, it's so horrible, right? And then they go back and they're like, oh, well, things actually seem kind of different now than the last time I shopped here in 2019, right? Because I'm sure you guys all know somebody like that, or you're told about GameStop and they're like, bro, they're literally such a bad company. Oh my God. Like my one friend says, this is literally his logic. He's always like, bro, every time I pass there, the store is literally empty. It's literally empty. And then he invests in like another stock. He's like, every time I go there, that store is so busy. I've Kava stock is so good because the store is so busy. And the craziest part is like his Kava thesis has literally played out, which is kind of funny and a little bit of luck. It's got to be, right? I don't know if you guys have followed Kava stock. But that's literally his logic. He's like, oh, that store's always so empty. It's terrible. Kava, it's always so busy. This stock's great. I'm like, bro, that's crazy, right? But I don't know. Then I love just trashing on Kava's food, literally just because of him, because he's like so obsessed with talking about it, like the same way. Or he only, not obsessed, but just friendly bickering. You know how it goes, guys. But semi-rigid card savers are a must. Yes, Matthew, thank you. You know what? I'm going to pull them out. Whoa. Let's see if I can get this drawer open. There you go. If you guys need to grade cards, you need these. And I just got a pack because I do want to open some cards, right? Stay tuned. I think that's something I'm going to be doing on stream in the near future. Why can't I find OBS? Boom. Right, this is what you need. So what I'm actually going to have to do is those cards that I'm going to get graded, I'm actually like, it looks like the same thing, right? But it's not. This is just like a general card holder, which I also have some from GameStop. So to be clear, if you guys are grading cards, like there is a difference, right? Just so you know, like this is just a regular card holder, right? See, this is trading card top loaders. This is semi-rigid card holders. Very important difference. So see, and then on the bottom it says for PSA, BGS, SGC grading submission. So definitely get yourself some of these if you do want to send in cards for grading. And I'm going to document, excuse me, how it goes in terms of the grading process for me. To be honest, it's probably going to be after Christmas at this point because things are just so crazy right now. And like I said, all the GameStops near me are in the mall, and the one I prefer to go to is in like the busiest of malls in the whole area around me. So with that being said, I'm probably going to wait a little bit of time, but it's going to happen. So stay tuned. I will report on it. Just been selling CSPs and buying more. Hey, nothing wrong with that, Matthew. Nothing wrong with that. It's all about knowing thyself, right? And how you personally want to go about things and your risk tolerance. I really feel like all of that is so important in understanding like the process of building wealth because everyone's on their own path. And to me, I see it as like me doing the stream. Like I'm just sharing my ideas for you guys to think about and build upon your own opinions. And then when you guys throw stuff in the chat, it goes the other way for me. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't think of it in that way, right? Or I didn't think of it in that sense. So I definitely do want to see what happens, right? And I just want to document. I just want to document because it's such an incredible story, right? And then you look at just little things here and there, right? Like I take this stuff with a grain of salt, but it's fun to look at GME Max Pain just to see where the price is relative to where the max pain point is. If you're not familiar, max pain for an options chain is the price point at which the most options would expire worthless. So this actually doesn't look like it refreshed because December 13th has passed, and I wonder if this has changed. So let's actually open this in a new tab. How do we even? Oh, maybe this is a screenshot. No, I don't know. That's all right. Of course, discover related topics, short squeeze. And if you guys are curious what this app I'm using is, this is called Obsidian. I absolutely love it. It's really helped me organize my ideas and notes, right? Like it's easy for me to do the stream too and reference like different points, right? And then take different notes as I have it. And got the tinfoil down here, and also talking about a narrative shift. These were all the old headlines for GameStop, right? Forget GameStop, forget GameStop, forget GameStop, forget GameStop. And in my opinion, whenever you start to see repetitive headlines with the same exact wording, you should be very, very skeptical. And in my opinion, it's like, why do you want to push that narrative, right? Why are you using the specific language to like embed in my brain every time I look up something about this company, right? Just food for thought. That's all I'm saying. But you've kind of seen this go away now, right? Like we don't really get the forget GameStops anymore. So could this really be the turning point for the company? It feels like it, right? Because now they're net profitable. And when you look at their net income, right, when you add this all up, and then we also have it over here, right? Their EPS for the quarter is 4 cents, right? And their net income is 17.4. Look at through 39 weeks, right? The first 3 quarters, zero net income, right? Zero EPS versus last year at this point. We were at negative 56.4 in net income and negative 18 cents of EPS. So we're looking at a situation now where whatever the company earns in Q4 in terms of its bottom line revenue will be its bottom line income for the full year 2024. So if they have a really strong quarter, right? In my opinion, a really strong quarter would be 100 million plus of net income, which I'm theorizing that they'd be able to do it, right? If PSA card sales are going really well as just people buying cards at the stores as gifts for the holidays, right? And with everything else between CandyCon, the mobile controller they created, right? All these little things combined, because all those things that they've basically innovated and added are all generally higher margin items because they're building them in-house or with a partner where it's basically GameStop's brand on it, and that allows them to, generally speaking, make a better margin than a product that they bought from like a manufacturer, right? Because they have to pay the manufacturer's price. So with all that combined, I really think it's possible, right? I'm going to kind of give an official prediction, like I always do right before the earnings. And I got to think about it more, kind of see how this quarter plays out a little bit, right? In terms of what I think Q4's earnings will be. And if you're not aware, Q4 is November, December, and January for GameStop. So we're right about at the halfway point right now. But to me, 100 million of net income would be great to see because then year over year, essentially net income would be up 100 million. And year over year, looking at Q4, net income will have increased. And then also when you look at 2022 Q4 net income, it was up year over year. Let's see. Wax on, wax off. What's up, WM? Wendy, hope you're doing well. Thanks for being here. Tetron, we should forget GameStop now? Exactly, Scott, exactly. Who doesn't forget GameStop, right? And I'm sorry, guys, I just realized the all chat wasn't on. I hope I didn't miss anything before. Forget GameStop, forget GameStop, forget GameStop, forget GameStop, forget GameStop, right? GameStop, forget it. Yoda would say, forget GameStop, we must. But old enough to remember when they told us to forget GameStop, kids. No, I'm just kidding. But what a story. What a story, right? And to me, it's the most fascinating story in the market. And that's why I choose to mostly talk about it, right? A lot of people say to me, like, oh, why don't you talk about other stocks, other things, right? Which I'm getting into, right? Like, I like Bitcoin a lot. I only like to talk about things that I'm really aware of, right? And I feel like took the time to really understand. And I'm taking the time to do that with more things, right? Like, I've been reading a lot about the MicroStrategy playbook, right? And not trying to indicate that GameStop should be doing that at all. I don't think they're in the same boat as MicroStrategy at all. But to me, that's just so fascinating, so interesting, and something I want to potentially talk about down the line. And also, Fed fund rates, just all these different things I kind of want to just evolve my content and talking about. But to me, no matter what, I will always talk about GameStop because it's just so fascinating what's happened with this company, everything surrounding it, going all the way back to 2019, from when Roaring Kitty was first getting involved, when it was near rock bottom, pandemic, everybody thought for sure this company's going bankrupt, right? Right? Oh, it's an obvious short. It's an obvious short, right? But look how that would have turned out. And the thing is, too, when you think about the potential of shorts closing, and I'm not going to get too deep into that right now, you have to realize that if you were shorting GameStop at any point prior to January 2021, at this point, right? Let's say you even shorted it back here. You look at December, you go, okay, this is crazy. And keep in mind, this chart is split adjusted. It'd be at $5. And if you're like, you know what, even after this, oh my God, it went from $5 all the way up to 120. I'm going to wait as long as it takes to cover this short because I truly believe the company's going bankrupt. If you had shorted it at $5, again, split adjusted, and waited this whole time, the closest you would have got is this $10 mark here, where maybe you could have just sold for losing what you put in, right? Or a double loss because you'd be going short at 10. I'm sorry, you short at 5, you cover at 10, you lose 100%, right? Whereas if you short at 5, close at 15, you lose 200%, right? So the best possible exit point you would have got as a short seller if you had shorted it at any point back here and waited this whole time, not to mention you paid the borrowing fee this whole time to some extent, depending on the type of trade, if it's a swap, whatever, it could be a little more complex, but this would have been your best opportunity to close. Now, if you're still waiting here, you're still significantly down on your position. So theoretically, short interest is suppressed, or you were a short seller at any point back here, still hanging on, you've really had no good point to sell it. And now with the way things are evolving, it doesn't seem like you will be. And, I think part of what we are seeing here is some shorts closing, right? It's hard to know when you dig deep into market mechanics and how things really work. The truth is that we just don't know who's doing what until at a later point, right? And sometimes we don't even know because of complex swap trades. The thing that really opened my eyes on that was the Archegos bankruptcy situation where they basically became instantly insolvent because they were just using the same little bit of money they had as their collateral with all these different banks, and they didn't realize it. So they had very minimum collateral, and they were buying things up in complex swap trades. So the banks didn't really see it, and they were family office, right? It's a bit of a complex story, but when you look at the filings when they went bankrupt, they had these things called custom basket swaps. And then I always forget, was it like Warner Brothers or Discovery? When they had a massive squeeze, right? Or a massive move, it was because Archegos, right? This was Archegos artificially buying up the stock and then just having to dump a massive amount of it at one time, right? And this was unseen in financial filings because of the complexity of custom swaps, right? That's the example I always think back to. But regardless, right now, it just feels like the company's moving in the right direction. And I always like to stay, I'd say cautiously optimistic because you just don't know what's going to happen in the short term. But when I see things happening like we've seen with PSA, it's like PSA is still relatively so new. Like they only partnered with them a couple months ago. Nat Turner only got added to the board a month ago today, or a month ago as of tomorrow, right? Whatever the case. So it's really still playing out, and I do want to see, are they going to further dig into collectible grading, right? I'd have to look into more of what PSA does in terms of grading comics books. I know they have Wada games for grading video games and a few different things under the uh, parent company that is collectors that Nat Turner's part of. So I'm going to dig into that more too to see what are some of the potential possibilities here. So that's the fun part of it too. Trying to theorize what's going to happen with this story. That to me is a lot of fun. Some people get mad. Like, I think overhyping is a little silly, but speculation is always totally fine. But I think some people get mad when it's like, why do you think this is going to go? That's such a silly theory. Why are you speculating? Oh my God, look at the facts. It's like, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that, right? It's like you do that with any other stock, people are fine with it. You do that with GameStop, it's like, old man yells at cloud, right? But the more I think about it as well, I think the term MOAS is kind of retired out of my vocabulary, I would say these days. But to me, and I was saying this for a long time, that mother of all short squeezes is what you define it to be. How I see it, right? Like, I guess I could still kind of use it in my vocabulary. I guess to me, it just seems like a silly term, right? And people are like, oh, MOAS this, MOAS that. I'm like, oh, it's so obvious, or oh, this is the biggest load of nonsense ever, right? But to me, it's like, why even put so much importance on it, right? If you just believe in the stock price going up a lot, why do you have to call it this or that, right? Or why does it have to have like this certified, verified name? And why I pull up Tesla here, and what a run it's been on as of late, right? Holy cow! And I really do think Tesla will continue to succeed, although its valuation right now is insane. I'm just incredibly blessed. I bought a couple shares from my mom's IRA, like way back here, at like $16 a share. And it's remarkable, right? But what I think we've seen here is over this whole period of time, and I think we have to be seeing it in here right now as well, at least a little bit, right? Is an elongated period of short sellers covering of people finally deciding, you know what? We're not going to bet against Elon Musk. We're not going to bet against Tesla in what they're doing. It's just not going to work. Let's just take the loss and move on. And that's kind of what I imagine with happening with GameStop over the next half of the decade, right? Through the first half, they've had to really kind of get things back on track. Ryan Cohen becoming CEO and board member, chairman of the board. And remember, previously to becoming CEO, first he was only chairman of the board, and they had a CEO in place. Think about it. He literally said in an interview, if I became CEO, I would have worked myself to death. I don't want to do that. I'm chairman of the board. And then he became CEO. So to me, he was like I don't want to say he only had one foot in the door. Like, he walked through the door, he was chilling there, and now he's like, all right, I'm cementing my feet into the ground in this place, and we are making this work, right? And then I think it will become a certain point, or not just a certain point, but over a several year period. Again, this is my prediction. You're more than welcome to disagree. I'm not in the business of giving financial advice. I'm just calling it how I personally see it. And again, think what you want. That's really, really important, right? But with that being said, I theorize that GameStop will see something similar to this, right? Maybe not as massive necessarily, but in the sense that it's an elongated period where short sellers and people betting against the company in one shape or form or another start to realize we should not. It just doesn't make sense to bet against this company. They're not gonna mess. They're not in a position where things are going to go downhill anymore. And man, you know what? We're not going to bet against this Ryan Cohen guy. Clearly, he's getting things done. And let's just give it up. And I think that's kind of something that's happened with Tesla. And obviously, their numbers have gotten a lot bigger over the years, right? So it's not just a massive short squeeze that's taken place over the past 5 years with Tesla. But I'm just saying, I see a similar type of situation unfolding with GameStop, right? Or that's my bull thesis, I guess you could say, right? I don't see a situation where it's like the Volkswagen one-day squeeze when there was a massive amount of demand and a very limited supply because of the whole Porsche buying a small portion of it. You could go research that. That's a whole topic in itself. So to me, that's how I kind of see things moving forwards at this given point in time. And we'll see. I'm not from the future. Maybe time travel's possible. Maybe the drones, they're from the future. Nobody knows these days, right? But I'm not from the future. I can promise you that. So I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen. I can just tell you based on what my knowledge is and how I'm personally seeing it, right? Sergio, never. What up? Can we talk about the aliens now? WM, they might be here. They might be here. They're like, you know what? The 2020s haven't been crazy enough. That's it. Release the aliens. Release the aliens. Let's make it a little spicier for the back half of the decade, right? Oh my gosh. I have so many theories. I low key went down the rabbit hole of the drones and so many theories, but I'm trying to keep in mind, like, you know what? That nobody knows. Nobody truly knows. And maybe we'll never even know, right? Maybe they'll just disappear as mysteriously as they appeared, right? But that's the craziest thing. Just like GameStop, nobody knows. Because I can, Tetron, you should read part 2 of my semiconductors and microstrategies in Apollo. KKR and Silver Lake is involved in ECP Energy Capital Partners. More proof of rounding, trip and tax cut, and Avgo. I got you, guys. I can. I got you. I'm going to check it out. I'm writing it down right. Is your name Because I Can on Discord too? Just so I can make sure I look out for it. See, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says they don't know what the drones are, not U.S. military, so these things are flying around with impunity near airplanes. Yeah, it's crazy, movie here. It's crazy. I swear I thought I saw one like a couple days ago, but I don't know. Now I'm like, did I even? Maybe I was just bugging, right? But it was late at night, and there was like all these like 4 different ones. I thought I'm like, okay, I think that one's a plane, and the other 3 are drones. And I'm like, and I was looking, I'm like, are there that many planes at this time? I don't know, but in terms of it too, it's like, yeah, like the Pentagon isn't saying anything, but then some are saying historically, when the Pentagon wants to cover something up, they usually have an elaborate story for it and a timeline around it so they can make the story accurate and in line with whatever's actually going on behind the scenes. And this time, like, there's some X factor that they don't know, so they don't want to put a timeline on it or give a story behind it, right? That's one theory. There's really crazy theories. There's extraterrestrials are the ones doing it, right? Or maybe they're scanning for something. Maybe it's just a test, right? Or there's something crazy about to happen, and this is just to like kind of make everybody look the other way, right? Or some are saying, "Oh, look the other way from the whole United Healthcare thing," right? So many theories floating around out there, right? But I'm just thinking of it as like, or how I personally approach things is like, I try not to get, you don't want to get crazy about it, start bugging yourself out, but be like skeptical, right? Or like, huh, that doesn't quite make sense, does it? But I'm not gonna like lose my mind over it. I'm just gonna think to myself, like, I'm just gonna think critically about things, right? Which I feel like is kind of like not like, oh, you shouldn't think critically these days, right? And it's not even like, and that's the craziest part to me too. Like, it feels like everything that's debatable becomes like political, right? Like, oh, well, it's the far left saying that. No, it's the far right, right? And it's like, it's sometimes it's just like clashing of opinions, and somehow it's like politicized. Like somehow I feel like the drones are being politicized, and I'm like, it's like everyone's just trying to figure it out, right? But then the other side of the coin is, and again, I'm just throwing all kinds of ideas out here, guys. This is literally all just fun speculation. The other side of the coin is, well, when you do something like this with the drones, people do come together. They get behind government. They get behind whatever law is about to be put out there, right? So it kind of brings people together and like, yes, we should allow this law to be put in place because look what's happening, right? So maybe it's something to that effect. I don't know, right? Again, these are all just theories out there. But maybe GameStop had the aliens the whole time and they just sold them to the US government for a whopping $1 trillion, and that'll come out in the next earnings report. Nobody knows, right? Nobody knows. But looking at the daily chart on GameStop, we had this little nice pop, and we got the nice pop at the end of the day yesterday with the massive amount of $125 call options being bought, that big block trade. And I saw this morning that somebody bought like 3 million shares. I'm not sure if that's entirely accurate, but it was like a big block trade that somebody saw and posted. And we kind of saw this choppy price action upwards, and it looked like maybe we are going to do one of these, right? Like those of you who know me do a very limited TA, but kind of looked like we were going to do maybe one of these, right? Like kind of consolidating, a little boom, 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 and then break out, but that wasn't the case. Maybe it will be later this week, not too sure. Because also when you look at like the 1 year, right, we still seem to be in a nice general uptrend right here. So even right here, right, you could argue this is still an uptrend as well, right? From all the way back here, like when we finally broke out, right? Like a general uptrend, not like a specific line, but right here, right? When you look back from like September, like their last earnings report approximately, right? Or yeah, I think this was around the time of the last earnings report, somewhere in here. Actually, I think it was right here. It was running because typically it's run before earnings. This time showing pretty good strength after earnings, right? And we kind of got a general uptrend going here. So we'll see if that continues. As you guys can see, my TA is not quite high level, but that's all right. I'm personally not in the business of doing TA. Like I'm, curious to learn some basics about it and whatnot, but I'm just really not all that interested. I'm just looking at fundamentally what companies are doing and just things as a whole. That's really kind of how I approach things. Not to say it's not worth reading, right? I got you. Okay, that's okay. Arcat will take care of those drones. Drips, thanks for being here. The name is because I can 55. I got you. Make sure I don't miss that. I'm not saying it's not U.S. military. I'm telling you what he and the Pentagon are saying, whether you believe them or not. Exactly. Personally, I lean towards a military operation of some kind with a dash of UAP stuff, but who knows? But I definitely wouldn't expect the government to be truthful. WM gets it. No, watching some of the government calls, I would expect incoming legislation that somehow removes more of our rights. Puff, puff, pass. Yeah, WM, maybe, maybe not. I don't think anybody knows. That's the craziest part, right? But maybe we'll look back one day and be like, damn, the aliens were just trying to warn us of something crazy. I don't know. I don't know, right? But it's crazy to say the least. It's crazy. No matter like what your theory is or what you think about it or whatever, it's like just when you thought the 2020s couldn't get crazier, here's some drones that are just mysteriously flying around and nobody's clearly saying what they are, right? Oh my goodness. But I digress. Let's get into a little Bitcoin and just dollar outstanding, right? So, why I put Bitcoin all-time high in GameStop. I think some people are thinking, oh, GameStop should buy Bitcoin, or that I'm suggesting that. No, not saying that should be the case. I wouldn't totally be opposed if they took like anywhere between like 5 to 10% of their cash reserves and put it in Bitcoin, because I believe in Bitcoin as an emerging alternative asset. And when you look at what's happening with the dollar over time, it's really just burning a hole in people's pockets. But in the case of GameStop, I want them to mostly keep their cash to really drive the company forwards and maintain a strong balance sheet. So I would really only want a very small position. But also, I'm totally content if they don't, because I buy Bitcoin on my own because I believe in it. I don't need GameStop to buy it, right? But looking at this chart, when we see something like this, right? BlackRock releases a 3-minute educational video. I'm not going to play it, just kind of talking about what Bitcoin is, why they believe in it, right? Well, meanwhile, they've been acquiring it this whole time, so they kind of wait till they acquired a decent amount to put this video out there and their bullish sentiment, so you could call it. But this is a comment I made. I said, when I see things like this, I got the Bitcoin Phoenix here, I start to think that we might be at the end of Bitcoin's traditional cycles. Perhaps this is the final super cycle where institutions and governments adopt it and acquire it, right? In the sense that when you look at this chart, right, 2024 is coming to a close. So depending where Bitcoin goes from here, it's going to finish at roughly up 152% year to date, right, or year over year. We'll see where exactly it ends. Maybe it's 160, 170, 140, 130. Nobody exactly knows, right? But point being, you can kind of see in here, there was massive jumps in the beginning, and then the cycle in 2017 was a pretty large one between 2016 and 2017. And then in terms of percentage, right, the percentage went down each cycle, right? So maybe this is the end of the cycles, right? In the sense where we see Bitcoin generally perform pretty strongly year over year. We don't go through periods, right, where we get a 60% down year or 73% down year or 64% down year. But what that means is we don't get that 1,000+% up year or hundreds of percent up year, right? Maybe it's something that kind of just slowly, steadily moves up, right? Not to say there won't be any negative years, not to see that there wouldn't be any periods of time where it would be down year over year, but I think it kind of steadies out a little bit. It still will be volatile day to day. But this is how I imagine kind of the Bitcoin cycle going, right? Just to do paint. It's kind of the first one. What is this thing? Kind of comes all the way down, then it goes up, right? Then it kind of comes down, sideways, sideways, sideways. It goes way up, kind of goes down, 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 down. Then it goes up, right? We're running out of room here, but maybe it's at the point, right, where now I kind of completely ran out of room here, but let's try that again. You get the point. So then, right? Whoa. What happened? Right, we go through this kind of chart with it, right, in terms of these cycles, but maybe then it's like kind of like this going forwards, right? Instead of these like massive dips, like I think it's kind of going to be an inverse exponential curve, right? That's where I see the long term of Bitcoin, because when you look at Bitcoin's supply, that's really what it is. It's an inverse exponential curve, right? Because a regular exponential is like this, right? Like going up, 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 very slow, very slow, very slow, very slow. And then it starts picking up steam very, very quick. and it's like that, right? Like that's an exponential curve. But Bitcoin's supply is essentially an inverse exponential curve, right? Like the amount of Bitcoin being created in the beginning was a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot, and then each halving kind of decreases, 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 and to the point where Bitcoin supply is increasing ever so slowly, right? Meanwhile, the US dollar, think about it, is generally speaking kind of an exponential curve, right? Like it's not necessarily exactly an exponential curve, but it's just rising and rising and rising, right? And we have a fundamental problem with our debt. Like that's the thing I think a lot of people don't realize. And to me, that's really why I believe in Bitcoin. And I see what's happening with the US dollar. When you understand that it's the world reserve currency, then we have a problem across all currencies all around the world, right? When you look at what's happening with the dollar and how much debt is outstanding, right? So this is debt by year. Looking at the end of Q3, it went from 26.9 year over year, then it went to 28.4, 30.9, 33.1, 35.4. So you can see it's accelerating, right? And the big thing is too, we have it by dollar here. So it's definitely even more now, right? Look at right now, 36.1. And then when you look at, let's say just 100 days ago, went from, it's at 36.1, it was under 35 trillion, right? So we've printed over, or we've increased the money supply by over $1 trillion over just a 100-day period, right? Actually more like 1.2 trillion. And when you look at when a lot of our debt is due, majority structure of debt remains very short, with half of outstanding debt maturing by 2026. That's pretty soon, right? If 50% of all debt, and let's see, this was written in June of this year. So there's a lot of debt coming due over the next 2 years or so. And you also look at the fact that interest rates were essentially at 0 to 1% that whole time. So the bonds being issued were at such low coupon rates. So now to pay off old debt, we're going to have to issue new debt at higher interest rates. And that's why the Fed pivot right now is very widely discussed, right? Because it's very much going to impact this. And if we do get a situation, right, where inflation does come back, it's kind of like a 60s style, 70s style inflation where we kind of had one big up curve. They cut rates a lot, or they raised rates a lot. It cut down inflation, but then inflation started coming back and they had to cut rates again. If we they have to raise rates again to combat inflation. If we raise rates again, or we don't even cut rates, then the US government has to issue more debt at higher interest rates. And all that does is accelerate the amount of total public debt outstanding day after day, right? So we kind of need the Fed to cut rates a lot, right? But what's crazy is too, when you look at it, usually the Fed's cutting rates to boost the economy. The S&P has been doing literally just fine since they cut rates, right? Look at this. Since October 2023, it's gone up like literally 33%. That's so much for such a short period of time, right? For a 14-month period. And we're cutting rates to boost the economy. To me, we're cutting rates more so because we have this looming debt. And when we have this looming debt, to me, that's where Bitcoin comes into play. And now they're talking about potential, was it Bitcoin Reserve I saw somewhere? I think I had that open here too. And, there's literally already a draft for it. So and then this has been my favorite response lately. I don't know if I put it on this one, but it's like a picture of Yoda and it's like, second best, there is not. Because Michael Saylor was like, there is no second best, right? But I see the reason why Bitcoin, GameStop, oh my God, the US government needs Bitcoin, right, on their balance sheet, because when you have this problem with the dollar, it's a fundamental issue, then Bitcoin like solves it, right, in a sense. But it's not like the dollar's going to go away. It's, to me, essentially how the looming debt problem is solved, right? What's the other solution? CBDC, central bank digital currency. I don't want that. I don't want it where every single time I send money, every little transaction, oh, you don't follow the rules? Okay, we're going to freeze your currency, right? Something like that. So to me also, it's kind of like game theory playing out as well. When you hear like Russia and China start talking about it, if our enemies are talking about it, right? Our enemies, speaking from America, Europe standpoint, or not necessarily enemies, but I guess you could say foes or geopolitical people on the other side of the aisle. I guess that's a nice way to put it. But essentially, they're talking about buying it. We want to be there first, right? It's just like going to the moon. We wanted to do it first, right? So it's kind of game theory playing out in real time a little bit, where it's like we want to acquire Bitcoin before they do, because then they're going to pay less than we do, and they're going to have more of the supply. They're going to have more of the share of it. And then also you see institutions adopting it, right? Some of them, and some smaller companies also kind of either following the Michael Saylor playbook or just adding a little bit of Bitcoin on their balance sheet as a reserve asset. So with that all combined, I really do think Bitcoin will be part of our future. There'll be more ups and downs. It's not going to be just a straight path upward, but for me, I'm fine with it. I just continue to stack sats, as they say, right, over time. And I have a cold wallet, and I just know how I want to go about things. And listen, I'm not saying Bitcoin's for everybody, but I think it's truly fascinating what it is. And when you look at what's happening with our debt, it's truly, and like not even necessarily that it's a solution for governments. To me, it's a solution for the people and for the individual to maintain their wealth, right? And that's something I've also been thinking about a lot lately. And when you sell something, right, I feel like a lot of people focus on like when in this point, right, when in at a time the cycle perfect, so I take profits, right? I'm going to take profits in sometimes in 2025 for Bitcoin, right? Maybe somebody's thinking that because they're focused on taking the profit. But if you don't have somewhere else you want to put the money, why sell the asset, right? Why would you want to just hold the cash? Of course, everyone's situation is different, right? For me, when I sell something, and like in terms of an asset, and then I'm stacking cash, it's because I'm thinking about life events coming up where I want to have cash on hand available, and I don't want to be put in a tough spot down the line where I have to choose to sell one of my investments to pay for some form of expense, right? And I think everybody needs to always have an emergency fund. That's always really, really important. You got to build that up before you even get into investing and all that. But with that being said, you want to think like, okay, well, if I'm going to sell this asset, why sell the asset unless you think there's another asset you can get into that will perform better, right? Then that's kind of a valid reason, or your underlying thesis in the asset changes. Otherwise, why would you sell the asset, right? And it's the same to me with GameStop, or for me as a Palantir shareholder. If nothing like fundamentally underlying changes that makes me like, oh, wait a minute, I don't like this anymore. Why would I want to sell those assets and then take on that capital gain? Right? Like, why would I want to not just hold that asset for a elongated period of time? And that's also where you could take advantage of a Roth IRA. You contribute to your Roth IRA. Now you've already paid your taxes up front, and you could just buy and hold assets in that account until you retire. And if that asset goes up like 25x, right? For the example I gave, I bought a very small amount of Tesla for my mom's IRA, and it's literally gone up 25x, and now it's a very large position in there, but I put a very minimal amount of capital. Unfortunately, it's not a Roth IRA, because then all that money would have been growing tax free, right? And that's why people tend to do, like, if you want to do a Roth conversion, by the way, you got to do it by the end of the year. Of course, I'm not recommending that. That is a taxable event. So talk to a CPA or someone if you're thinking about doing that, or do your research. But point being, if an asset's down in value, or you think an asset's about to go a lot higher, a lot of people consider Roth converting that asset because they want to pay the taxes on the valuation at that point, rather than when it goes way up and then they take the IRA distribution, right? And I'm talking about something like for someone older than myself, right? I'm obviously very far from retirement, but that's kind of just how you want to think about things, right? Or something I'm realizing over time. And you want to think about, to me, I think the average person thinks like buying stocks, buying Bitcoin, they think of more of like trading rather than investing. To me, investing is about building wealth. Trading is about bringing in income, right? Generally speaking, and with when you bring in income, you pay taxes, right? Whether it be short-term capital gains, which is just added to your regular income, or long-term capital gains. You pay taxes when you sell an asset. So if you're trying to build wealth, why would you not want to just hold the assets? And then when you can, hold the assets in a tax advantage account that is a Roth IRA. But of course, as you guys know, I'm not in the business of giving financial advice. I'm just telling you my findings over time, reading and learning about things as an individual on my own investing journey, right? And that's like the new header in my channel. Join me into the world of the journey of, I can't remember now, journey into the investing world, something to that effect, because I'm just sharing my journey and how I see things and how I go about things, but everybody's on their own path, on their own journey. But I think it's important to just keep being like a sponge and taking it all in and learning. And for what I do, like on my day-to-day job, sometimes I get to talk to people or see what people are doing in their accounts, and I'm like, okay, like this is I see from a wealth building standpoint why they would want to go about it in this way. But again, those are just my thoughts. Martin Scully called that salve short though. Morrow, yeah, that I did see that. That was crazy. Like, but isn't that kind of insider trading? How did he know it before anybody else? And it's crazy. If you had shorted it or bought a put on it, it literally collapsed the next day, right? Because of a trial failure or whatever it was. But just sending you a friend request in Discord. Okay, because I kind of got you, I'm gonna check it after. That would, in terms, make the process higher though. Price. Oh my god, Tetron streams back on schedule, bros. Yes, sir. Windfall. Thanks for popping in. Trips. You have to elaborate what you mean on that, or which point I was talking on, just because I was bouncing all over the place there. But and yeah, I'm trying to get some spicier thumbnails. Let me know what you guys think about the new logos and thumbnails and stuff. And I'm just trying to get better at anything. And also something I'm realizing, right, guys, over time when you get like learn to get better at things, right? Like I've wanted to get better at taking notes on, and for me, it started with GameStop or understanding GameStop by diving so deep into GameStop, right, and creating this huge like document that I have here. It's made me like approach stocks and investments and whatever else, right, with the approach of like, okay, I need to dig into it completely, take all these notes on it, summarize the information, highlight what's important, right? Like, so when you get good at one thing, you kind of get good at all things, right? Obviously, it's not all that black and white, but generally speaking, anything that you do over and over and over again, you will get better at it, right? I don't know of any story ever where somebody tried to keep doing something over and over and over again, and then they got worse at it, right? You might not become the absolute best at the tippy top, but you can absolutely work your way up in terms of like percentile rank of whatever that thing is, right? Whether it be a sport, YouTube, for me, like what I'm trying to become the top 1%, I guess you could say, of YouTube and X, but not because like, look at me type of thing, but more so like I want to be the best. I want to work to be the best. I want to do the most that I can to be the best that I can be. And that's for me, not for anybody else. And you guys just get to be part of the journey. And if you're here right now, you're a true day one when I do get there. So I appreciate you very, very much in being here. But let's see the exponential line. As Bitcoin slows in halving, would the price skyrocket as a commodity would be less acquirable? So trips, that's the whole thing to me. It's essentially kind of a supply shock. And that's where I think we're seeing a little bit right now and why we've seen so much price action lately when you see like massive institutions like BlackRock getting into it, because there's demand flooding in, but then limited amounts of supply. And to me, that's what gives it value over time as well, because you can't just increase the supply of it, right? Like the US dollar's been happening for years and years and decades and decades. So you would think, okay, well, that might fundamentally become a problem at some point, right? Not exactly, because when you look at Bitcoin, right, you can infinitely devise it, right? Okay, you have 0.001 Bitcoin, we need to make it smaller. Then you have 0.00005 Bitcoin, right? It's your 0.0000005 Bitcoin, 0.00000000002 Bitcoin, right? You can infinitely divide it forever. So to me, like that is kind of the fundamental like behind it, if that makes sense. But gotta drink water. Hey yo, this guy's smart. Trips, I'm trying, brother. I'm trying. Thanks for being here. But listen, even if you're not into Bitcoin or not into GameStop or not even ready to invest, right? Maybe your situation calls that you're trying to pay off some student debt, right? That's at a high interest rate. I paid off all my high interest rate student debt, right? Because I had a private loan, and I was like, a couple private loans. One of them, I got absolutely blessed. I literally paid it off because of my call option during the sneeze of January 2021. The other private loan, I was paying off during this period. In a way, that kind of helped me because I wasn't really buying GameStop as heavy in here. I was really more so buying it, I would say, heavy in here, like in this period, right? And then I kind of, right around here, I kind of slowed down and I picked up a little bit more in here. And then ever since here, I've really been chilling and I've kind of just been selling puts, right? I think I started selling puts around here, right? Rough estimates. But point being, my private loan was like 10% interest rate. I'm like, so essentially, I need to earn more than 10% on my investments in order to be earning a greater rate of return, right? Or for that to be considered good debt, right? On my personal balance sheet, if you want to call it that. Not to mention that I would have to earn more than 10% because I would have to sell the asset to then pay down the debt at some point, and then I would have to pay capital gains on that as well. So I was like, I'm just going to pay off that high interest rate debt. It's essentially like a 10% return, right? Because I'm not paying that 10% interest I would have had to pay. At this point, I just have one small federal loan, and that's at an interest rate of 2.5%. And with the high interest rates we've had for a while, I'm like, why would I want to immediately pay that down when I'm earning like 4.5% on a high yield savings account, right? Or in a money market account? When if interest rates get cut down below 2.5%, then I might say, you know what? All right. I think now I'm going to go in and just pay off that loan, right? It's a very small loan. I could pay it off literally tomorrow if I wanted. I have it covered with more than what I have in my emergency savings, right? To put it in perspective. But why would I when it's only a 2.5% interest rate and I could earn a risk-free rate right now of what, 4.25%, 4% on a high yield savings, whatever exactly it is. It's probably going down a little bit because the Fed's about to cut rates tomorrow. But point being, that's essentially considered to be good debts, right? But again, that's just my situation, and I feel very like blessed and thankful that I've been able to understand this stuff, at a young age, being just 24 right now. I know my investing journey like has so much further to evolve and improve and just keep getting better, right? That's what it's all about. Just keep getting better. And I'm also thankful that when I started in investing, right, and dabbling things, like I opened my first brokerage account at 16, literally no idea what I was doing, messing around with options at like 18, 19, tiny bit, right, until 21, whatever the case, right? Or pretty much right until here is right around when I stopped options, right? Or shortly after. I was playing options in this period a little bit. But, and then now I'm back, mostly just selling options. But what I'm saying here is prior to this, right? During this period, 2018, 2019, even 2017, right? The previous like Bitcoin cycle, I made so many silly mistakes. I bought the stupid like meme coins, right, and lost money. Was part of rug pulls, traded penny stocks, tried foreign exchange trading like forex, like spot trading or whatever, crypto day trading, you name it, I tried it, right? All the like kind of get rich things, get rich quick type things. Not to say that there isn't money to be made in any of those things potentially, but you have to be an absolute expert. And at the teenage level, I definitely was not. But my point is like, because I was young and stupid, I didn't have a job, right? I didn't like whatever money I was making at like my part-time job in high school and even early college, right? Or in early college, I was starting to just pay for school. In high school, I was trying to save up for college, and I was trying to just hang out with friends, do whatever, right? So in that happening, I had very limited amounts of money that I was like investing in markets and investing in meme coins, right? Or forex, whatever the case. And that allowed me to make my silly mistakes early on without a significant amount of capital. So my, I guess, suggestion, because I'm not in the business of giving advice, would be if you're newer to investing in any way, start small. Just start small because you're gonna make mistakes in the beginning, right? But also the more you read prior to getting involved and the more you educate yourself, the less mistakes you'll make. At that time, I was young and naive. I just like, I gotta get in. I'll just start now. I'm not gonna paper trade. I'll just trade right away. I'll figure it out as I go. That's all right. And I'm incredibly thankful that I was doing that at a point where I didn't have significant amount of capital that I could lose, right? Imagine I was naive, right? Or I was starting now and had none of the knowledge or experiences that I've had on my investing journey at this point. Maybe I would be buying like, what is it like? Um, all these coins that are going crazy. I can't think of the one that's king meme coin right now. I don't know. There's a lot, right? There's a lot, but maybe I would be like chasing those coins and being rug pulled, right? Maybe I would have believed in the hawkonomics of the Hawk Tuah coin, right? Because you gotta laugh that their defense is like, listen, the hawkonomics are still there. Nothing has changed with the hawkonomics. The developers totally believe in it, right? You gotta laugh at this stuff, but at the same time, it's like I don't even really feel bad if you bought that, right? I don't even feel bad. I only feel bad if they got kind of like normal people in who don't know anything about crypto. That was their first crypto experience. That's where it's messed up. For anybody that's seen the game at all and thought, oh, I could time the rug pull right, that's the thing. When it's a rug pull, unless you're the one pulling the rug, you don't know, right? Like, so that's why I don't touch meme coins at all these days. And yeah, that's just my whole personal experience. But Or the interest rates could be dropping soon. So far, other banks slowly dropping APY. Yeah, Trips. I did see some of them are starting to cut their rates for like the high yield savings and money market accounts. 125 pre-sit. I was still holding. Brett, thanks for being here. Hope you're doing well. Unless I'm not understanding the connection between interest rates and APY, I'm also 24 in the process of all that right now, trying all the get rich slowly, getting better at timing markets and analysis. Yeah, listen, Trips, it's all about your own journey, right? And how you want to go about things. There's nothing wrong with trading, right? Don't get me wrong. And like now I'm kind of technically trading, right? And selling options a little bit. But you just have to know like the risk associated and like your own tolerance for that risk and just how you want to go about things. And to me also like I use Fidelity. It's nice. I have like different accounts. I have traditional IRA, Roth IRA. I have the account I'm using to trade, to sell puts. I have the account I'm using to just accumulate miscellaneous stocks. I had one account I did like an experimental portfolio. I just put $1,000 in to see what it will do over like a 5-year period, right? And that's just something I wanted to do. So I like for me, it's easier like kind of separating everything. But just the best thing you could do is just like keep learning from things like over time. Not asking for tax advice or anything, but how complicated is a Roth IRA conversion? Do you know if your unrealized gains are also taxed before the conversion? Movier, I got you. Of course, this is not financial advice. But when I did a conversion of some GameStop stock back here, I'll just speak from my experience. But pretty much, like I converted it before the end of 2023. I think it was here-ish, somewhere here. Or was it before the end of 2022? No, it was before the end of 2023 because I did it with my 2023 taxes. It was somewhere back here, right? Somewhere back here. So essentially, when I converted it, it was based on the value of the asset at the time. So when you do like it doesn't really matter based on like unrealized gains in any way. Pretty much like if you do a cash conversion, right? If you convert $5,000 of cash, that $5,000 is reported as income and moves from your pre-tax IRA to your post-tax IRA, which is your Roth. And then when you're converting an asset, right? Let's say you're converting GameStop. If you convert $5,000 worth of GameStop, it's just like it's that 5,000. It's the same thing essentially, right? Like that 5,000 is considered income, and then those shares at that current valuation go into the account. But if you wait till, if let's say GameStop went up 20%, and then you convert it, you're converting it based on a $6,000 valuation, right? So then the conversion value is 6,000. So it's really the value at the time of the conversion. But of course, you're like we're saying, not financial advice, and I definitely, you do when there's tax consequences involved in making a move, like you always really, really want to consider before doing something like that, right? So make sure you just consider everything and understand that it is a taxable event that's taking place when you're doing a Roth conversion. So you have to be like willing to do it. And another thing sometimes people do, right? Like if they're between jobs for a period of time during a year, right? Like let's say theoretically I had left my job in like March of this year and then I didn't start the following job until June. There would be a gap of time where I really wasn't bringing in income, which would mean my overall income for the year would probably be generally lower. So generally speaking, that's kind of a convenient time for people to execute a Roth conversion because they're okay, well, now I'm employed again and my overall income for this year wasn't that high, but I do want these assets in a post-tax account for the long term, right? And then another thing you could also do is when you contribute to your 401k, like or whatever type of retirement plan your company has, a lot of companies now have it where you can just contribute to a Roth 401k. So pretty much post-tax status. I mean, you can't write off the taxes, so you can't write off what you're contributing to it, but it's in a post-tax account. And then if the company's matching in any way, they're matching to the pre-tax status, right? That's always how it naturally goes. Unfortunately, it doesn't go automatically to the Roth, but just something else you could consider there. And for me, I don't buy, like, I only buy Bitcoin and individual stocks. I don't buy mutual funds unless it's a retirement account. And as of right now, and how I've done it since I've been in my job for 3 years now, I only buy the S&P 500 in my 401k. For me, that's what I'm comfortable with as a young individual. That's how I want it to be. I want it to be 100% S&P 500. And for the most part, I've been doing pre-tax. I've done a little bit of post-tax. I kind of wish I did more, but for the most part, I've been doing pre-tax mostly because I want to write off whatever taxes I can now to accelerate, just bringing in as much money as I can and getting my life started and buying a house and all that type of stuff. So I want to be able to write off whatever I can, right? And then if it's a situation where the markets go down a lot, then that's maybe a spot where I go ahead and do a Roth conversion, right? So these are all just kind of different things I think about over time. But I do have a large amount of S&P 500, right? And that's what I always tell people: if you want to just get involved in investing and just want to do the bare minimum, if you just want to just invest in the market as a whole, you pretty much just buy the S&P 500, right? You're pretty much just betting on the top 500 companies in America. And if top 500, the 500th company just starts to suck out of nowhere or completely fall apart, guess what? They fall out of the top 500 and company 501 slides into the spot of 500, right? Generally speaking. So you're basically betting on just the top 500 companies in America on a long-term basis with that. So that's like the easiest way to get involved with it. But with all that being said, I do have a significant amount of S&P 500, but it's all in retirement accounts. And the nice part is too, it's also being matched a tiny bit by my company, right? So I'm just accumulating, and getting to write off a little bit of taxes, but some of it's also in like post-tax status. So, and then over time too, depending where I've been at, right? I'm like, okay, now it's time to raise what I'm contributing, right? And with the company matching, like the little bit that they do, or it's kind of hard to explain, but it's like on a vesting schedule. Like the long, and most companies do like this. The longer you stay with the company, the more of what they match you get to keep when you leave. Whereas like if you only stay there a year or two, whatever they're matching, you probably don't even get to take any of it, right? So you got to read your plans, like specific policies and procedures, to understand like the rules behind it. But for me, being there a few years now, and like a good chunk of it that they match is now vested automatically, I've raised my contribution percentage, right? From like, I think I changed it from like 3 to 4% the other day, right? Or I've kind of changed it between 2 and 3% throughout this year. Not that it really matters, even that 1%, right? I don't know. I'm just kind of, yeah, I'll do 1% Roth right now. Actually, let me go back to just all traditional, right? So I kind of bounce back and forth. But lately, I'm like, you know what? Going to next year, that's just another year. That's just more money vested that they match. So let me just keep adding to that. And when I'm buying the S&P 500 in a retirement account at 24 years old, I'm not retiring until I'm at least 59 and a half, right? That's the retirement age. And who's to say that doesn't go up by the time I retire, right? Given that you, with everything happening with social security expenses and just the outstanding debt, right? Who's to say the retirement age doesn't go higher? So pretty much I have like 35 plus years. So even though S&P has been raging higher for the past couple years, I don't mind buying it right now because it's just being bought in a retirement account, and it's part of it's being matched too. But completely ranting here. So the Hawkonomics, see, Trips gets it. Hawkonomics are very intact with Hawk Toy. What is it even called? Let's see. Is it on TradeView? Please don't tell me it's. Oh my goodness! Of course. And look, surprised. Who's surprised here? Who's really surprised by this? Right? Let's see. Coin market cap. Ski Mask Dog. This was the one. I don't know if you guys saw this. There was a senator that bought this. There was literally a senator that bought this, right? Wow, it's actually held up pretty well, and I think it's because of that senator, right? There's literally, it's just a dog in a mask. Like, this is the world we live in. It's crazy. A U.S. senator bought this and then tweeted about it, and it's like, what the heck? Like, how is that happening? Is that like pumping? Did he sell? I don't know, but that's the world we're living in, guys. And that's where also part of me right now is I'm like, I believe in Bitcoin a lot, and I think the economy is going to keep driving forwards. And the S&P, like when you look at the magnificent seven, there's such a large majority of the market as a whole. So if they're doing well, generally speaking, probably the U.S. stock market will continue to do well. Of course, there's a lot of macro factors, and it's not that plain and simple. But what I'm saying is, it feels like things in terms of the market and Bitcoin, and I guess you could say crypto as a whole, although I would say I'm like Michael Saylor. I'm a Bitcoin maxi. My allocation is about 98% Bitcoin, 3% Ethereum. If you add up everything I have, it's getting closer and closer to 99% and 1%. But it feels like everything's going to keep going up. But at the same time, it almost feels like there's a little bit too much euphoria right now, right? It just feels like everything's a little bit too good to be true. So I'm very like cautiously optimistic right now with everything across the board, right? So we got pudgy penguins. My coworker's been talking about XRP since 40 cents. He's like, come on, dude, I told you. And I'm like, bro, There is no second best. There is no second best. Let's see. Hawk Tua coin. Hawkfi, really? There's multiple. Oh my gosh. See, you don't even know which one's the real one. I'm gonna assume the one. I don't even know which one to assume. Hawkfi. Has she even tweeted since? Has she even tweeted? Right? This is the list of people surprised right here. This is the big list of people surprised by the Hawkonomics failing. By the way, new channel banner, if you guys haven't seen it. And then also Twitter updated the banner here as well. And logo. Not sure if I'm going to keep the logo yet. I might change that again, so we'll have to see. But, second best there's not. Where is it? What's her name? Haley Welsh, right? Let's see. Wow, she literally hasn't. Look at this. Oh my gosh, the amount of community notes is insane. Has she done her podcast since? Only 90%, over 90% of token supply has been sniped and is sold on the community. Buying this highly speculative Hawk coin could result in loss. Due diligence is recommended. This is December 4th. Hawk is live. The Hawkonomics. Copy and pasting. Literally just saying like, hey, my PR people have literally been doing all this the whole time, right? The team and insiders have actually been selling their tokens since launch. Majority have never even purchased anything, only sold. And she tries to come out and say, there's been a wild, so I guess this is who's her team, right? Over here underscore GG. There has been a wild amount of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt circulating. Let us explain. The main piece going around on X is that 96 per cluster bubble maps shows Hawk I can't read this seriously. Tokens being sent by the developer to related addresses. 96 token supply has been sniped being sold to the community. And then she just doesn't tweet since, right? Like she doesn't post anything since. Has she done her podcast? What is it? Talk to her? Talk about the Hawkonomics, right? What about these guys over here? Have they posted anything? Okay, so they're still trying to defend themselves to this day. But that's probably because they sense a lawsuit coming, right? The Hawk community. Ah, crazy guys. It's crazy. Let's see. Have you looked into Arcad? I got into it again today. I've taken a private 845. I honestly believe it'll continue to grow with the contracts and PLTR deal. It's freaking called Hawk Tour. I'm an XLML coin getting some bumps. Nice trips, nice. I'll check it out real quick. I'm honestly not familiar with Arcad. Let's see what we got here real quick. Arcad, Red Cat Holdings. Okay, it's up. Okay, wow, it's had a really good year, and that makes sense if they partnered with Palantir because Palantir's just been rocking and rolling. And I really think, honestly, I really think Palantir is going to be a lot bigger. And I wish I talked about it more on the channel because it's easy to say that now that it's went up like 10x from its like all-time lows. Just a couple of years ago, it went from $7 to $70. And I bought a little bit at that point. I was buying from 20 all the way down to 7. I wish I bought a whole lot more during that downwards period, right? Because obviously anybody who did insignificant portion, which a couple of my friends that I know bought a lot. And they're literally still holding to this day. And obviously it's panned out very nice for them. And hopefully we see something that's similar to GameStop very soon. That would be nice. But really in this period, anybody accumulating in here, and it seems in hindsight a lot of institutions were accumulating in here, and a lot of institutions are now rushing to get in right now. But remarkable the run it's been on. And I think it's going a lot higher because these contracts are sticky with companies and countries, and also especially with global tensions just continue to escalate. You know, they helps the West, right, as a whole in terms of like solving issues and their proprietary technology. And companies are just getting so much data and they're getting all these analytics, but it's like they can't digest them and use it to further the business. So really the summary of Palantir is it's bringing together like human logic and AI logic together to make informed decisions or allow individuals to make informed decisions. It's not just like, hey, do this. It's just like logistically, this is what you're looking at here. And it's tailored to each individual company. And as they build these they get these partnerships, it's been shown that they're just getting bigger over time. And to me, that's a big part of why the stock price has gone up a lot. And, you know, also being introduced, was it the S&P 500? I think it was. I don't know. I can't keep track, but Let's see what we got here. I got to read about this real quick. Let's see, together with subsidiaries provides various products, services, and solutions to the drone industry. Uh-oh. Drones. Drones. Are they behind the drones? The company offers integrated robotic hardware and software to provide critical situational awareness and actionable intelligence to on-the-ground warfighters, battle commanders, firefighters, and public safety officials. Yeah, I mean, I could see the potential for this, just upon a glance, because I do think drones are going to be part of the future. Maybe not these alien ones that we have right now, or whatever you want to call it, but when you look at like Amazon's talked about a long time delivering things with drones, Walmart's already experimenting with it, right? And then also, if there is a situation where we need to catch a criminal, I think that's fine for the police to use the drones, right? Obviously not to like spy on people for some nonsense, right? I don't think that would be okay, but for, certain, emergency like rescue situations as well, whether it's like, I don't know, maybe like firefighters, some kind of building. Like, I do think drones are part of the future, right? And they have good purposes. But then the scary part is like when you think about that, they could be weaponized and then massively all controlled. Like when you see those light shows of all those drones, right? Like I'll look it up real quick. Drone light show. See, now my girlfriend's going to see Haley Welsh in my previous searches and be like, hey, what's going on here? What are you doing? Nah, just kidding. But see, like, look at this. And this is where I get scared, right? Like, this is really cool, right? It looks super dope right here. But what's scary is, what if all these drones fly together and are weaponized and there's some war going on, right? That's scary. That's scary. That's all I'm saying. So that's what worries me about drones. But besides that, I do see like the use case for them in a lot of scenarios, and then also things like this, right? Fun things like the light show. But while right now artificial intelligence isn't taking jobs, I do think it's gonna be a part of like I see a world where in like 4 or 5 years from now, unemployment reports come out, and like one of the reasons that's cited for the current unemployment rate being like accelerated artificial intelligence technology, right? Maybe something to that effect. But there'll still always be certain careers that can't be replicated, no doubt about it. And I also think we move into a world where things that are automated more and do kind of eliminate certain jobs, that opens up other potential jobs, right? Ideally, or opens up more time for people to innovate more and do different things, right? Like I'd say that's kind of the best case scenario. But things like cars being completely self-driven, like truck driving is one of the largest, like, let's see, let's ask Grok. How many truck drivers are there in USA? I'll say in USA and in the world. I'm sure this isn't 100% accurate, but just think about how many people, right? 3.5 million people. So these figures between 1 point, so let's see, and then 8 million worldwide, right? Conservative estimates. How many people live in the USA? Let's see right now. It's got to be a lot. I'm not even sure. 346 million, right? That's 1% of all jobs, right? And not even everybody's employed, right? So that's higher than 1% of all employed people, right? Because this is the whole population. Not everybody's employed. Number one, there's unemployment. Number two, there's people who are retired, so they're not going to be employed. And number three, there's kids, they're not going to be employed. So this is going to be a pretty significant portion of jobs. And that's not to mention other driving jobs, right? Like Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, things like that. Like if cars could become completely automated, that's crazy, right? I still think we're very far from that. I don't think we're quite there. But even just delivering packages, right? If those kind of jobs get eliminated. So it's like stuff to think about down the line. Not necessarily crazy right now, but I don't know. It does concern me at least a little bit, right? I don't think I could be the only one, right? But we'll see. I have to just live and see how it all plays out, right? Nobody truly knows. And yeah, that's the thing. What do people do if a lot of jobs get eliminated, right? It would be ideal, like, oh, everyone becomes, has more time to think and do different things, and then people throw the idea out there of universal basic income, right? I don't know. I'm completely off the rails here. See, NASDAQ, they just secured a military deal, 20 to 40 million in 2025. Nice trips. Hey, military deals left and right over the past couple of years. That drone show is really damn cool, but scary. Exactly, man. Exactly. I know exactly. I feel exactly the same. That's what's happening in Ukraine right now. Yeah, see, Jusev, thank you for being here. That's crazy, right? Like, that's wild. Like, I hope, all these wars end right now. I know it's not that simple, but, I just feel like you got to find a solution for peace, right? Like, you got to kind of exercise game theory a little bit, but hey, listen, I'm no geopolitical expert, right? I'm just completely speaking off the dome here. Like, just got to find a way where both sides can agree to just stop, right? Because all that happens with war is just innocent people die, right? Like that's really what it comes down to. And obviously it's not that simple. There's so many layers to global conflicts going on right now, and I'm by no means an expert to talk about them. I'm not going to. But it would just be nice if we get some peace. And the really messed up, unfortunate thing is that war is profitable, right? Look at companies like Lockheed Martin. I'm sure they're making a killing, right? I mean, yeah, they've dropped off a little bit recently, but yeah, and then same with pharmaceuticals, right? Drugs are profitable, right? And it's just mind-boggling that so many commercials on TV are literally for like medicine. Like it should just be if you need it, the doctor gives you what you need. Why do we need to be advertising it, right? It's because it's for profit. And yeah, I'm going down a crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's all crazy. It's a crazy world we live in. So you have to be able to zoom out and look at everything. But I'm completely going off the rails here. But yeah, let's see if we got anything else. I agree. It's the point of paying someone to deliver something that a robot can. I'll sorry for derailing the conversation. You're good, Trips. You're good. I kind of just talk about a lot of different stuff, so I'm totally okay with it. And that's how this stream goes, honestly. If you come back, this is how I rock and roll. I kind of just spit whatever's on my mind. So that's about everything I had for today. I mean, definitely will be interesting to see over the next couple of years, right? With a lot of debt maturing by 2026, what will happen in terms of interest rates and inflation? Because if inflation's going up, then you might want to raise rates, right? But if you're raising rates, then now you're paying off older debt with newer debt that's at significantly higher coupon rates. And that's detrimental to the long term of just debt to GDP, right? Which, by the way, we're at like 120% last I checked, right? Let's see what Grok tells me. His latest debt to GDP reading. So once you're past 100%, it's really hard to outgrow it, right? So it's roughly 123% right now. I think we've kind of been floating around 120s right now, but once you get to like past, I think 150, there's really no going back, right? Like look at Japan's debt to GDP. It's like 300%, right? Maybe 250. 255%. And when we cut rates, right, that also theoretically, like, because what's gone on with the yen for a long time, right? If you look at the yen to US dollar, let's see, yen, US dollar. I'll go to Yahoo Finance for this one. Yen, US dollar. Oh, that's why. I just realized I'm doing this completely wrong. I haven't looked at it in a while. Right, or what is this? Why can't we just get the numbers? There we go. Okay. So what you've seen for just kind of a long period of time now is where it's just kind of become widely accepted that the yen is going to hurt against the dollar, right? So you're better off just borrowing the yen at this really low interest rate and then converting it to the dollar and then either just holding the dollar and just earning 4 or 5% on a money market account or putting it into be a little bit more risk adverse and putting it into individual stocks or the S&P 500. And it's not like individuals necessarily doing this. It's more so like large institutions. So if we see more yen carry trade unwinds, like we kind of saw that flash earlier this year, right? Which looks like just a blip on the radar. When you go back, right, what was that right here, right? In the summer, we had this period of time. Oh my God, the yen carry trade's unwinding, massive downturn, right? But this is kind of just a timeless lesson if you look back here. Time and time again, when there's been short-term panic, you just buy the dip. You just buy the dip, and sure, it could dip more. You might need some chips with your dip, but if you're playing the long game anyway, in the long run, right? More often than not, when you buy like these massive downturns, right? And just when I say massive, right? Large moves in a relatively short period of time after things have been good for a while. If you've done that at any point, right? Here, even here, at any point over the last several years, it's worked out really well, right? Even if right here, right? You saw this drop off, you bought, you kind of come back here, okay, then you're okay. I'm gonna wait till it goes higher, but oh no, it went way down even more down here. You buy right here. You're watching this play out. You're like, oh, it's not going anywhere. I'm not gonna buy. I'm just gonna hang on. It came back, right? So, moral of the story is always buy the dip if you're playing the long game. If you're playing the short game, a little bit of a different story. But really, what it comes down to in terms of the debt outstanding, and that will be partly in correlation to what happens with Bitcoin, because really, to me, why Bitcoin is going up a lot in value is because yes, there's increasing demand for it, and then with the Bitcoin halving, there's less supply being created on a daily basis. But it's also the fact that the dollar just keeps being printed and printed and printed, and there's no signs of it stopping. So let's say we get a situation, right? The Fed's cutting rates, and then all of a sudden, inflation readings start coming in hotter and hotter. They're, all right, we got to stop cutting rates. Better, even worse, we got to start raising rates. Then all of a sudden, all this debt is coming due, and they're issuing it. Now they're paying off this old debt, and they have to issue new debt at a higher rate. So we'll have to see, like, what's happening with inflation over the next year is going to be very, very impactful for interest rates. And in turn, that's going to be very, very impactful for the supply of the US dollar, which in turn is very, very impactful for Bitcoin, right? And even if, right, let's say inflation stays calm, right, it stays at bay, we can cut rates down pretty low. We get down to like 2% or something. Reissuing the debt that's coming due is not so bad over the next couple of years. We still have 122% debt to GDP, right? So unless we're massively growing GDP, we still have a fundamental problem with the US dollar. And if you have a fundamental problem with what's considered to be the world reserve currency, you have a fundamental problem with currency in general. That's just how I see it. I think I'll leave that with you guys today. I mean, I'll hit the chat one more time, but yeah, that's kind of where my head's at as of now. See, agreed disappointed someone paid to delete some to Robocan. My 2DD is connected to Moran's connected dots by Apollo. Guess where Garamity is working now, an investment outfit with strong links to, yes, Leon Black. In April 1988, Los Angeles-based UCFP costs an investment company that's done some big deals. Made him a partner, is headed by supermarket mogul Ronald Burkle. Black's Apollo Advisors financed UCO, I can't even say these names, 1995 acquisition of Dominic's Foods. Yeah, it always seems to be like, from watching some Rance's Connect the Dots series and just reading about this stuff as I go down these rabbit holes, right? There's always like, oh, we'll invest in you, right? Oh, now you're investing in me, right? That kind of always seems to be where these connections start. And then that's where I think people too say like, oh, well, they're not all sitting in a room saying, let's all bet against GameStop. It's more so when you're investing money into each other, your interests align, right? So I think some people think like, oh, it's all these, like, that's such nonsense. You really think all these people are sitting in a room betting against this one company or all planning this particular thing, right? No, it's more so like interests become aligned and it becomes in everybody's best interest to have like the same standpoint or the same position on the stock, right? Like just like all of a sudden recently, it's kind of become in everybody's best interest for Palantir, right? And I'm talking everybody in terms of institutions and institutional ownership for Palantir to be on the long side, right? Whereas over here, right, when you look back here, it was institutions in best interest to be on the short side. Why, you might ask? Because Palantir actually did something called a DPO, not an IPO, a DPO, a direct public offering, right? A direct public offering basically means their shares went right to the market. Since there was no initial public offering, there was no firm that was facilitating it, meaning there was no institutionals buys that were able to take place, right? And then when they tried to buy in, right, if maybe they wanted a position, it started going up so fast. So is kind of in the institution's best interest to bet against it, right? Bet against it the whole way down. We've seen this with Wall Street time and time again. They ride the whole way down. Then right here, like, okay, now that it's at a low price point, like when it first went public, and we didn't get it. I think they were a little mad, truth be told, that they didn't get in on the early action, right? They didn't get in right away, right? Maybe this stock wouldn't have played out in the same way. I don't know, right? Just speculating here. But they basically could ride, okay, well, it's in our best interest to all ride it down and then get a better entry point for the long term. And then if you got it in here, now all of a sudden it's in the best interest to be on the long side, right? And it's not like they're all meeting in a room necessarily deciding this, like all these like large institutional investors. It's more so kind of all, hey, we all didn't get a chance to get in. What the heck? It shouldn't be this high right now. We didn't even get in yet. This is crazy. Why is this interest building up so fast? This public interest. And then kind of knock it down, right? Or bet against it, whatever the case, however you want to look at it. And then all of a sudden, here we are, right? I mean, it's not always that plain and simple, but that's just some general ideas there. But it's like how interest can be aligned without like meetings taking place, right? Generally speaking. Oh, Danwell, I'm coming back. Subscribe and follow the next. Hit me up if you got a Discord. Trips, thank you. Appreciate you, man. I got to get back on Discord. I literally haven't been in so long, so stay tuned for that. Maybe I'll kind of build out my channel. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But it's a busy time of year, so I'm just trying to get consistent again with making content. I kind of took a lot of time off between GameStop's Q2 earnings and Q3, so I really want to get back on the grind. Keep just being consistent. That's what I'm really trying to focus on. Just being consistent because life gets busy and it'll be busier sometimes than others, and definitely this time of year with holidays and my job at the end of the year gets crazy. It's busier, but I'm trying to just keep consistent through the end of the year. Got a nice couple days off right after New Year's, so that's also going to be nice to relax. Maybe mix a stream in there, even though I'll be going away, but I could probably do one quick one during that point. But not to say I'm not doing any until then. But point being, in January, February, I'll be able to really kind of do a lot more. That's the game plan here. So, but Liam Black with Ronald Burkle. And I think the next stream, guys, stay tuned. I'll be posting on X when I stream, but I'm going to do it for... Okay, writing that down. Calendar. It's good to keep a calendar too. It helps you stay organized. Part 3 of the Ron Burkle. Let's see. Ron Burkle is in fact and noted being friends with both Jeffrey Epstein and P. Diddy. Oh man, because I can. You're way in the rabbit hole. That's crazy. Part 1 of the DD is ownership works. All of P, Apollo, KKR, RES, Silver Lake are into every pension. What I'm saying is they're going to use everyone's pension to cover. That's why Athene gave into Apollo their people pension. Wow. Yeah, see, because they can, that's crazy. That's crazy, but I wouldn't put it past them, right? I wouldn't put it past them. And it's one of those like, if that is truly what winds up happening, right? That is where I understand the reference of just don't dance. Just don't dance, because that's so messed up. And then when that does happen, right? If that theory plays out, then and I like to always, me, I like to just talk in hypotheticals. I'm not trying to dismiss it or anything like that. But what I'm saying is, if that plays out, then what do you think is going to happen? Who are they going to blame? Them. They're going to blame GameStop. They're going to blame the GameStop shareholders, and all it's going to have been is just people buying a stock they liked. And that's going to be crazy, right? That's going to be crazy if that plays out. So I honestly hope it doesn't, because I don't want to see people get hurt. I got a retirement account I'm building up. Everyone around me's got a retirement account, right? I don't want to see regular people get hurt, so it's crazy. But did you watch the UAP hearing last month? Some of the stories from pilots were crazy. Objects going from an ocean to 80,000 feet in mere seconds. That's almost space. No way we have tech like that. Movier, that's crazy. I didn't hear that one. That's a wild one. But, man, I don't know. It's like, there's got to be aliens out there, right? It's just a matter of, like, have they come yet? Had they already came and left, and, like, these people are so boring relative to where we are, because you just don't know how far along they are in terms of technology. Like, they could be light years ahead of us, right? They could be, I think about this. Google was only found, like, the main search engine for what, 25 years now, 20 years? ChatGPT, all this, like, AI images are a year or two old. Think about how much farther along we'll be in a couple years from now. And let alone, like, a few decades, let alone a few hundred years. So who knows what some foreign species in the universe is so massive, right? So I'm just saying who knows. I'm not saying like, oh yeah, there's like definitely aliens. But also when you just think about like what is reality, right? I watched this video and it kind of blew my mind. It's like if I cut this in half, right? Or I don't know, let's use a simple object. There's no simple, whatever. We'll use these post-its, right? Cut this post-its in half, and then I cut it in half. I cut it in half, cut it in half, to the point you can't even see it anymore. And then I keep cutting it in half, right? Let's say I can keep shrinking myself to keep cutting it, right, with the world's sharpest knife. It gets down to the point where I zoom in, right? We'll zoom in on my face here since I'm yapping. It gets to the point, right, where you're down to literally atoms. You're down to atoms. And then once you get down to atoms, you're down to a single atom, right? And then let's say I keep shrinking myself down. I could be infinitely shrunk, and I have the world's sharpest knife. I chop this post-it up into as many possible pieces until it gets to the point it's literally just atoms. And then I chop up all the atoms, and I get down to a single atom. And then I get down to protons, neutrons, electrons, all that, whatever. And then the little atoms below, like microatoms of that, to the point it's like, what's left after that? What is that? What is that even beyond that, right? Like, what is that? And then do we get to a point where we're literally like in the fabrics and construct of time that it's so like no microscope could ever see it? If you kind of get what I'm saying, it's like, what is reality, right? And then maybe there is technology out there somewhere in the whole universe that they figured out how to look even further beyond like what's inside an atom and inside of what's inside an atom, and then they were able to see like, oh my gosh, this is the construct of time, like this is how we time travel, this is how we send Roaring Kitty back to start making YouTube videos. No, all right, now I'm just joking around here, guys, but what I'm just saying is like there's so much about reality that we literally don't know, and I find that fascinating, right? People say like, oh my god, or like, I guess people say oh my god, but I'm not saying like, yeah, there are definitely time travelers, or yeah, there's definitely aliens, but I'm just saying like, how do you truly know? How do you truly know? Right? That's all I'm saying, right? And it's all for fun. I'm not saying like, oh, I'm gonna be the one to crack the code. That's not the business I'm in, right? What I want to do is share my investment journey, research stocks and investments, and do live streams and post on X. And yeah, that's just me. But hope you guys had fun on today's stream. I feel like we covered a lot of different topics, and I love GameStop, but I definitely want to talk about other things as well. That's what. Oh, did you watch? Let's see. I recommend checking out Pilot Commander David Fravor's story. Just YouTube his name, but it's also interesting, and he testified in Congress. I'll check it out, movie art. Thank you. Yeah, that's one of those things too. My girlfriend's always like, "What do you want to watch? What do you want to watch?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't watch TV. Like, I'm like a YouTube guy. I really just watch like sports and YouTube. I very rarely will like sit down and watch a show. Like, I've been meaning to watch The Sopranos forever, but like, I don't know. I just don't sit down and watch shows. Like, I watch YouTube videos slash listen to YouTube videos. Like, a lot of times I start watching a YouTube video, but then I kind of start doing something else. So I'm kind of listening, and it depends, right? If it's a short video and visual based video, I'll watch it. But if it's like a longer form video, I'm kind of like half listening or like live streams and stuff. So she's always like, "What do you want to watch?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And now I'll finally have something because we're both interested in that stuff, just for fun and just relaxing. So let's see, David Fravors. So all right, movie. I'll have to let you know on that one. I'll have to let you know. Maybe we'll watch it this weekend. But yeah, I think we'll leave it there for today. Thank you guys so much for joining. Uh, Looking like the next stream will be this Friday. I should be home around 4:30 Eastern time, so maybe get the stream going by like 5 p.m. ish. That could be the goal. So look on my X if you don't already. Follow me there. You can keep up with the latest updates for what I'm posting. Whether it be a video or a live stream at Tetron Invest. Feel free to always reply on anything I'm posting. Tell me what you think. Like I said, I'm always open to what you guys have to say, right? And I'm trying to be better at like communicating, right? In the sense like I try to like reply to as many things as possible, but it's hard, right? Because I'm working throughout the day, so I'm trying not to spend too much time on X. And then also like I'm trying to like when I respond, right? Like I want it to be, and I just realized I didn't switch this, did I? Follow me on X. Here we are. Oh, that's not X. But when I post, like a reply, I want it to like really articulate my response. And then sometimes like it's like I'm at work, I see it, and then I go to respond, and I start typing like, no, it doesn't exactly sound like what I'm trying to say. What am I trying to say? But then something pops up at work, and then all of a sudden I forget, and I'm like, it's all this time later. And then yeah, so I'm trying to, like anything else, just trying to balance it all out. So yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. We're gonna leave it here for today. Hope everybody has a fantastic night, and take care. Oh, we didn't do any napkin math. We're going to do this on Friday. All right, guys, we're going to do this on Friday. I'm saving it right now. And we'll even, we'll put it on my canvas. We're going to do this on Friday. So we'll put that maybe over here. Could always move this later. Whoops. So yeah, also with this, if you use it, Obsidian, you can just paste in like straight up web pages. Although, doesn't want to work right now. Okay, that's fine. We'll save the link. PSA napkin, PSA GameStop napkin math estimates. That's what we'll call it. So then I'll draw myself an arrow so I remember. Be like, why is that arrow there? Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about this. So thanks so much for tuning in, guys. I hope everyone has a fantastic night. Good rest of your week. Know thyself. Always stick to your own plan. Keep going. Have a good night.